Hello, everybody! BeMetalways here, last day of 2023, and therefore it's that time of the year again. And despite some issues keeping the channel alive, I am back to talk to you about my favorite albums of 2023. So, those are my top 20. There is mostly metal albums, a little bit of rock here and there. And due to some other priorities, I have also reduced significantly the number of albums I've checked out this year. So I didn't check all the albums released in 2023. Certainly not the 150 or some that I used to check. I think I'm down to half of that. So those are just my personal favorite ones in some kind of order, even though those orders are kind of fluid. But it just reflects my personal feelings and experience with those albums during this year. So it's not an absolute list, and everyone will have their own personal list. There were, for example, 5 albums that I missed during the year completely, but due to analyzing other lists, I gave those albums a chance, and some of them even made it to my top 20 albums, and others I have added to the honorable mention since I didn't have enough time to really grasp those albums and put a score to it. And I guess that's the most useful outcome of those lists to help people discover new music and albums that they may have missed, like I did. So I hope my list will also help some of you. I do have some very mainstream records in there, but also some personal favorites that I haven't seen in any lists, and of course, some gems to be discovered. So, I hope you enjoy it. See you in 2024. Let's go through the list. First, number 20, No Spoon Opus. This is a progressive metal band from Charlotte, North Carolina, and was one of the late additions to my list and a big surprise. After a couple of recommendations, I checked them out and I was very happy I did. This is an impressive debut album in the lines of Dream Theater meets Symphony X with a little bit of Between the Buried and Me, for example. That means impressive musicianship, catchy songs, and very good songwriting and also some good heaviness. For any prog metal fan, this is a must listen. Number 19, Primordial, How It Ends. Having lasted for 32 years, the Irish band have consistently delivered their epic blend of Celtic and black metal. The 2023 effort is no different. The opening title track is already a classic for me, and Primordial continues to be big, epic, dark, and yet catchy. There's nothing really different from previous albums. It's more of the same, but the same works for me, and how it ends delivers on what the band is set out to do. Obituary, Dying of Everything. This is a solid addition to Obituary's extensive discography. The band's trademark sound, this very raw death metal, is on full display throughout the album, with very heavy, chugging riffs and John Tardy's guttural growls leading the charge. The musicianship is tight and precise, with each member of the band delivering a strong performance. Overall, fans of Obituary and death metal in general will find plenty to enjoy on this very good album. We stay in death metal for number 17, Horrendus, Ontological Mysterium. Those guys are no strangers to my year end lists, and here they are back with this new album. While not as impactful as the 2014 uh, Ecdysis, I guess that's how you pronounce it, this new endeavor is pretty solid as well. With 9 songs, is only 38 in only 38 minutes. Is a direct and straightforward modern, but deep rooted in the 90s death metal. It's brutal and energetic, but also melodic, atmospheric, and technical. Welcome back, Horrendus, to my list. Number 16, we stay kind of death metal with the Kettle Decapitation Terracite. Another band that has been on a roll. Did they ever release a not great album? I don't know. But, anyways, with Terracide, Cattle Decapitation continues to demonstrate their unique blend of death grinds and progressive elements, while addressing environmental and social issues in their lyrics. The tempo changes, the incredible versatile vocals style of Travis Ryan is a notable aspect of Cattle Decapitation's sound, adding depth and intensity to their music. The album closer, Just Another Body, is a curveball from the band. It's a 10-minute epic, very unlikely to hear this from them, with a slow tempo and also even clean vocals. It was an interesting experiment, but not my favorite part of the album. For the rest, very good album. Number 15, we go completely different with a very mainstream album. Of course, I'm talking about Metallica with 72 Seasons. Look, if this album would be released by any other band, I probably wouldn't get a lot of attention and nobody would care. But since it's Metallica, I gave it a try. And I guess I mostly hoped that without any pressure from timelines or financially, obviously those guys are way beyond being rich, that they would, potentially take their time to create something cool, heavy, and sharp. We saw some light of it, pun intended, with Lux Eterna, the album, first single, but this is not a good representation of the album. The album, yes, has some good moments all over it with some cool riffs and hooks, and that's why it's number 15 on my list. But is it just feel a little bit rushed that they didn't care too much about polishing the album. Every song except the single that I mentioned could be shortened and trimmed, but they didn't do that. So it's a bit too long of an album. With all that said, I still had some fun with it and I listened to it quite a few times. So there you go. They still made it my top 15 list. Now, number 14 is also an interesting one for me, Avenged Sevenfold with Life is But a Dream. This album was a roller coaster for me. It went from being a disappointment album and I didn't even listen too much to it. I hated the first couple of listens, but it's getting better and better with every listen. I guess once I put it aside, my expectations and preconceptions of the band, trying to look for another Nightmare album or the self titled album, I then started to look into this with a different eye. I mean, I am a prog metal slash rock fan, and I do like their early albums. So, Life is But a Dream combines the best of those worlds. Yes, it's weird, but in a good way. The first four songs are kind of traditional mainstream Avenged Sevenfold songs, and then the middle part is a bit weaker, but then they close with a very interesting and super proggy song. Well, collections of songs, God, and then the album closer, which is an epilogue with almost like a jazz piano song. I gotta give it to Dan. It's a cool album, and maybe we'll go even up in my list in the future if I keep listening to it and growing on me. All right, so let's go to number 13. Completely different style now. We go to kind of black metal. I'll talk about it, but it's Moonlight Sorcery with Horned Lord of the Thorned Castle. Another late entrance to this list. This album is a mesmerizing journey into combining atmospheric black metal and, wait for it, power metal. So, I mean, if you would mute the vocals, you would say that this is a traditional power metal album. But when you put the themes, the lyrics, the imagery of the band, and obviously the vocals that are very traditional black metal, you have something quite unique. Musically, as I mentioned, it sounds really power metal. There's have these cool melodies, intricate guitar work, some atmospheric synth layers, and altogether it's very interesting. So the they successfully captured the essence of dark magic medieval times, but different than traditional power metal bands do, of course. The album is dynamic, the compositions offer a compelling blend of genres, as I mentioned, and stand out as something rather different and engaging in 2023. Number 12, Sorcerer, Reign of the Ripper, a doom metal masterpiece that displays crushing guitar riffs, thunderous drumming, and hauntingly melodic vocals. They create this atmosphere that is dark and yet emotional. Special shout out to the vocals delivery, awesomely powerful melodies in those vocals. The band's ability to blend traditional Doom elements with modern touch is evident throughout the album, showcasing a dynamic range that keeps us engaged from start to finish. Reign of the Reaper not only pays homage to genres, the roots of the Doom genre, like Candlemas, but also dives into traditional heavy metal elements quite intensely. So they deliver a powerful and emotionally charged listening experience that solidified those guys as one of the masters of contemporary doom metal. Number 11, Tesseract War of Being, a progressive metal journey showcasing the band's virtuosity, complex polyrhythms, ethereal atmospheres, and emotive melodies. They can create a captivating listening experience. The seamless integration of intricate guitar work, dynamic rhythms, and Daniel's evocative vocals, which are much more aggressive this time. I mean, he's screaming more. There's more growls here, which I thought was an interesting change of direction from the previous two albums, I guess. But all in all, it's a complex journey, but without sacrificing melody and accessibility. It's not a short album as it runs for almost 60 minutes and features a couple of epics, but regardless of this, they hold our attention and it's worth the effort. Let's go to the top 10. And we start with another progressive band, another one that is not gent, because they say that Periphery 5 gent is not a genre. One of the best title albums of the year for sure. Very interesting joke there. But their latest album is a progressive metal musicianship journey with a complex and intricate guitar riff, precise and dynamic rhythms, and powerful vocals. The band showcased their technical proficiency and versatility throughout the album. Periphery experiments with diverse time signatures and textures, keeping listeners engaged and interested. The album's impressive production quality and innovative songwriting make it a must listen for fans of the genre. So that was Periphery. Let's go to number 9, Spirit Adrift, Ghost at the Gallows. This is where Doom and traditional heavy metal meet, and this time around, even more traditional heavy metal than Doom. Overall, the album seamlessly blends thunderous riffs, intricate melodies, and Nathan Garrett's powerful and yet not over the top vocals to create a sonic experience rooted in 80s heavy metal. The first a minute and a half, for example, could be something out of Killers from Iron Maiden. And even the format of the album reminds me of Maiden in the 80s. 8 songs, around 45 minutes. Very cool homage to 80s heavy metal. Ghost the At the Gallows is likely the best entry in already very prolific Spirit Drift's discography. Code Orange, The Above, is number 8. This was another surprise that skyrocketed into my list as soon as I heard it a couple of times a few weeks ago. It's a groovy, heavy, and melodic at times, and call me crazy, but I get some serious Pantera vibes here and there. And I really liked their Forever album, and the Underneath album was also quite okay, but I lost track of them when I heard this release only a few weeks ago, as I mentioned, I was immediately hooked. This is much less noisy and less experimental than previous albums. And there is still some of that, of course, but now to me, they have found the right dose. There's a lot of melody, slower parts, there is noise, there's a lot of heaviness, and all blended in good measures, I guess. Probably their best album and most mature album. These guys have a promising future. Number seven, Riverside ID identity. Let's say this is the masterful blend of hard rock and experimental prog rock. The band takes the listener on a journey through a variety of moods and emotions, and overall identity is a must listen for fans of prog rock. The band has truly allowed themselves the freedom to create something unique. It is a testament to their skills as musicians and composers in this newly open phase for the band. To me, except for a couple of missteps, it's a very good album deserving the seventh place. We go back to death metal with number six, Insomnium Anno 1696. This is a solid addition to Insomnium's discography, with the band continue to deliver their unique blend of melodic death metal. While the album may not necessarily break new ground, it certainly delivers on the expectations of the band's fans. It's a more cohesive and easily digestible statement, and yet very dynamic between sadness and anger. A very good melodeath album, deserving this spot number six, proving further why they are the top of their class. All right, let's go to top five with a very interesting comeback for me. In Flames, Foregone. I love early In Flames. It was one of my first more extreme metal bands. They brought me into death metal when I was a kid, and of course, I don't love a lot of their mid era recent albums, but overall, Forgone is their best in many years. And while, yes, some songs really bring me back to their 90s sounds, the band has also maintained their later auto rock influences very much alive. I just think the songwriting and the balance is much better than in previous albums. At the end of the day, it may just be that I really, really wanted to like an In Flames album for so many years that I glanced over some of the missteps in this album, like the overproduced vocals and sometimes sounding like Bullet for My Valentine. But with that said, I'm enjoying this album a lot, and it's a very good effort, deserving spot number five. A very important album for me this year was Soen Memorial. I love this album, and I even got it in vinyl. Something that I reserve for very special albums these days. Haven't bought a lot of physical copies this year. The two reasons why it's not number one is because it's a bit too long, and two, I don't really like the two ballads, the last song and the one with the female singer. I forgot her name in the middle of the album. Other than that, it's a perfect modern progressive metal album. The accomplishment here was to keep it interesting and complex and yet accessible. And the songs are very short for a progressive metal band. So they have boiled it down to the essentials without compromising their already well established signature sound. Sincere was my top Spotify song, and four other made the list as well. So that says a lot, and I don't know, enjoy it. It's a great album. Number three, Primal Fear, Code Red. Not a lot of power metal albums on my list this year, which is a pity since it's one of my favorite subgenres. But Primal Fear is an awesome representation claiming the bronze medal. I've always liked their albums, but often they are too long and feature many fillers. This time around, they were able to keep it consistent despite being almost 1 hour long. And it does feature a couple of less interesting songs on its last third part of the album, but regardless of this, the album is full of well known Primal Fear style anthems, like Deep in the Night being my favorite. An inspired power metal album full of hooks, heaviness, and catchiness, which is all we need from them. So, love it. Number three, Primal Fear Code Red. Number two was another big surprise, was another album that skyrocketed my list when I listened to it recently. Cripper, Sangvor, I guess that's how you say it. This is an English rock band from Southampton, and as I said, it was the surprise of the year for me. I missed when it was released back in mid-October, as I didn't even know the band. But then, when I casually listening to it to explore some other people's year-end lists, this album stood out as something different from anything else in any of those lists. In some, I would describe Creeper as a darker version of Meatloaf. There's also a little bit of 80s rock and that theatrical dark elements we see in the band Hell, also from the UK. Cry to Heaven is such a catchy rock anthem, and the album overall is dynamic. For example, very different than Cry to Heaven, the opening track, Further Than Forever, is a 9 minute epic masterpiece. It's been a refreshing experience to listen to this great album, and it certainly deserves my number two spot. And we get to number one, Haken Fauna. Overall, this album is one of Haken's best albums since The Mountain and must listen for fans of progressive rock and progressive metal. It is a testament to the exceptional musicianship of those guys, with each member of the band contributing to the sound that is both technically impressive and emotionally engaging. The result is a unique blend of progressive rock and metal with elements of jazz and even pop music. The album theme, using Animal Kingdom as metaphors for personal messages, is quite interesting, and the lyrics amazing under the soaring vocals of the great singer that also the name escaped my mind right now. This is my album of the year since it was released and no one could beat them. So there we go, my top 20 albums of the year. I also want to give some shout outs to some honorable mentions that were very close to the top 20 or albums that I liked but I didn't have time to dig further. There are 12 of them, so I'll say it very quickly. Catatonia, Sky Void of Stars, Enslaves, Hemdall, Tomb Mold, The Enduring Spirit, Rolling Stones, Hackney Diamonds, Immortal, War Against All, Enforced War Remains, Marduk, Memento Mori, Angus Mac 6 and the Sword of Power, Cataclysms, Goliath, Baroness, Stone, Xandria, The Wonders Still Waiting, and Wada, Crepuscle Natura. My disappointments were Mirkor, Spine, The Ocean, Holocene, Glory, Hammer, Return of the Kingdom of Five. I really love this band, or at least used to. Let's see where they go. Scar Symmetry, a band that reappeared but not very strongly with this Singularity album, and Twilight Force at the heart of Winter Veil. I also missed to dig deeper into guitar solos, so I will only highlight two of my favorites: Rise by Extreme's Nuno Betancourt. This is, of course, for many people, everyone was impressed with this best guitar solo of the year, and also Nobody in Avenge Sevenfold's album by Sinister Gates was another highlight for me. So, favorite shows, definitely Iron Maiden and Pantera. Those shows blew my mind. Say whatever you want about those bands and shows. That's not the point. The important thing is I was there and I had a blast. All right. So that's it for 2023. I will also post a list with the aggregated list from other people to see what in on average were the top albums in the media of heavy metal and rock. So thanks for that and happy 2024. See you next year and be meta always.